Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Seeker's Quest. I'm Radha, your co-host, and I'm here with Veda and CC, or Chaitanya Charan. We call him CC. How are you guys today?
Chaitanya Charan has a smile on his face, so we should let him answer first.
You know, I was happy till I saw you. That's
I'm
that's
happy
the
to be
opposite
cause of
of
your
answer.
misery.
Yeah. So Veda, I'm very angry with you.
You have all right to be angry. Please tell me the cause of my actions.
So you are the most efficient in word usage.
Efficient.
Yes.
That's the
Everybody
first.
offered at least all those who wished me birthday wishes, they all use at least 10 to 15 words. You just use 4 words.
So you feel emotionally hurt to the lack of use of words.
I feel emotionally hurt and intellectually impressed.
So please tell me about these two opposite spectrums of your emotions.
Yeah, I was intellectually impressed that you could get away the birthday wish with something so small. Whenever I wish somebody birthdays, I forget most of the time. But when I do remember, I send an audio message. I plan it for 1 minute. It usually becomes 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 minutes. So that's why I was intellectually impressed that you could keep it so small.
How do you know it was not my laziness?
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I thought that when I had to choose, I had 3 options. That you're busy, you're lazy, or you hate me. So I
Busy,
chose the
lazy, or
middle
hazy?
option.
Did you say lazy, hazy, or busy?
Yeah, I said
Which one did
busy,
you pick?
lazy, or hateful.
Lazy, hazy, busy, crazy?
Yeah, I chose busy. Mm, yes, bro. So, Radha, do you want to start?
Okay, so we're going to talk about this quote today. We're starting this new thing. We were going to start it last week, but it didn't happen because we started talking about other things, but we're doing it this week. We're going to start talking about the most liked quotes on our Instagram and making them kind of a theme of the class every once in a while. So this is one of the quotes that we had up there. It says, if we try to please everyone, we end up pleasing no one. Take a stand and stand strong. And our very own CC writes these quotes. And this one is inspired by Bhagavad-gita 13:11. So this is the quote that we're talking about today. And I was up this morning, I thought of a good amount of questions around this quote for you that I feel like I need answered in my own spiritual quest. So I'm looking forward to this. And I feel like I could relate to this a lot. I think of this one as like, tell me what you think of this analogy, Cece. It's like you have a glass half full and you want to fill your cup up. And so what you do is you take your half full cup and you try to give it to others instead of filling up your own cup and then giving to others from like the overflow. So when you're trying to please others, you're giving them before your own cup you're giving them some of your own cup before your own cup is full. And in that way, you're taking away from yourself and you're unhappy, as opposed to if your cup is completely full and it's overflowing, and then giving is really giving from like abundance. And that's what inspires happiness. That's what brings like real happiness and connection, as opposed to giving from a half empty cup. What do you think about that?
Yeah. It's a very thought-provoking analogy. And I would say that I would just maybe qualify that a little bit. Veda, if you want to comment something, let me share my screen till then.
Yeah, I kind of
So,
go ahead.
no, you can start. I'll depict what Radha said, and then we'll take it forward from there. No, let's go right. Please go ahead.
I like what Radha Priti said, but then I always think if we try to please everyone, we end up pleasing no one. And I think that we can please everyone. And there's a way to do it. It's just the way we think is the way to please everyone may not be the way. So we just have to figure out how to. So I kind of like this quote very much, but at the same time, I think that if we take the right stand, we could please everyone. So that's something I think of when I see this quote. Because
okay, there are two things over here. My understanding is doing good to others and doing things that others feel good about. So we can have the intent to do good for others, and in that sense we can do good for everyone also, but doing good to others or for others. But if you contrast that with doing things that others feel good about, these two are not the same. And the second category we try to do, we will end up getting into, how should I put it? We will end up pleasing no one, because we are limited beings and we are surrounded by people with different desires, different priorities, different value systems also. So in that context, we cannot make everyone feel good about us or about the things that we do. That is extremely difficult, if not impossible. But the idea that we try to act in a way that is beneficial for everyone, that's something definitely we can do, and we can do it more and more as we move forward in our life journey.
I think the problem with this is that when you develop a relationship with somebody, you get kind of emotionally entangled with them. So what they perceive as like, even if you're doing something good for them and they don't perceive it that way, it's still very painful for you if you're close with them and therefore emotionally connected with them. So it's like being able to separate yourself enough that you still have that relationship, but not so much that it's like a roller coaster of their emotions, which can be difficult, right? Or like you're on a roller coaster of their emotions, like because you're tied to them.
So you're not trying to please them. You're trying to, you're trying to go with their emotional feelings. You're just trying to make them feel good. You're not really trying to please them, are we?
Isn't that what pleasing is?
To make their senses feel good?
Okay, I guess we need to define what pleasing is, but
yes, it'll be good.
Okay, let's I think we are doing what we do very well. Just wander off all over the place. So
we're wanderers. We're seekers.
Yeah. No, let's be seekers, not wanderers. The two are different things. So let me start with the verse 13:11. This is as part of a series of verses 13:8 to 20, where the Gita talks about the characteristics of wisdom. And the Gita puts it as, wisdom is, nowadays we may talk about education, and education is talking about degrees and data and information, but that is not what wisdom is about. What the Gita says is, it's about values, and it's about virtues. So in this particular context, the words on which this quote was based is, the Gita says that for those who are seekers of wisdom, or those who are actually wise. So with respect to wisdom, we can have seekers, and then we can have seers. Those who have the wisdom and those who are seeking the wisdom. And we could say this is like a funnel, that those who have wisdom, they are very small, but those who seek wisdom can be much larger. Of course, you could go at absolute level and say that every seer is always a seeker. They keep seeking always. But still, if you put it this way, anybody who's on this path of on the wisdom journey, we can say, they have to have this understanding that my ways will be different from the ways of the world. That if somebody is really seeking wisdom about the meaning and purpose of life, they're trying to live a life of spiritual value, that is something which a significant number of people in the world will not appreciate. Say, for example, if we belong to a social circle, let's consider that this was before we started our spiritual journey seriously. So I'm there here in the social circle. And then when I become a seeker, especially a seeker of wisdom, you could say a spiritual seeker, then to some extent it's going to happen that we may have to move to the periphery of that social circle. We may not have to go, we may even have to go out of that social circle. But if somebody's social circle is all about partying and drinking and having fun and what is called as fun, and then they can't continue doing that. And a significant number of people will disapprove, devalue, maybe even deride. In worst cases, it may even demonize what we are doing. Now, if they don't do it, that's great. But the readiness for this is one characteristic of wisdom. Hopefully, we can find a social circle where people are more accepting of our spirituality, and we will. But if we expect that my social circle will embrace me and my spirituality, that is something which is unlikely to happen. The possibility is very remote. I have seen a few cases where one person becomes spiritual and then maybe the whole friend circle or the whole family, sometimes the extended family, all of them start becoming more and more spiritual. But in my 25 years of outreach, I've seen probably maybe a handful of cases like that. Most cases, people have to be ready to make some social sacrifices in order to stay true to one's principles.
So you're saying step one in cultivating wisdom is being okay with being different, being okay with being less accepted by your normal social circles.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say step one. It is one step, not step one.
Okay.
So yeah, it is one step, you could say. It is what that, I do put nicely, being different. Being different is a much more palatable way of putting it than saying being unpopular or being considered unsocial. So, but that's the context. So the examples that you're giving, they could be true, but maybe if we stick to the context, then we can expand from the context further afterwards. But this is the broad idea that if we want to grow spiritually, then we need to recognize that we will be different, and people will look at us differently also. People will treat us differently at times, and we need to be ready for that. So there is this, I could go further, but if you want to reflect on this, then we can do that, and then I'll move ahead after that.
Radha, I'll let you go.
I wanted to hear you, Veda. What do you got about being different?
No, let's hear what you have to say. I'd like to hear yours. This is right up.
Both of you are using humility as an excuse to cover your inability.
It's true. I'm a little blank. I got nothing.
Okay, we could, in one sense, link this back to the points which you had made, because those are also valid points. So this is with respect to spiritual life, and we'll come back to this maybe toward the end. We'll try to do a circle.
No, I guess this is related when we were talking about the definition of what pleasing is. So if somebody that's not in your social circle has a definition of pleasing, it may be different than yours. What may please them may be different than what would actually please them. And it's important to stand your ground and be convicted in that you're doing the right thing in the way that you're treating them, even if they don't perceive that you are, because they may perhaps have a different set or system of values. And that's okay. And you can still love them and they can be different, but you yourself have to accept that you're following this. Now that you're following this path, your set of values, your system of wisdom is going to be different. And if you can accept that, it's going to be easier for you to stand in what you know is their definition of pleasing them versus getting carried away into their emotional interpretation of what's good for them. How's that?
Yeah, it's a nice way of putting it. So, we could say that we accept others. That's one part of any relationship. And even if we are different, you want to draw a thought bubble, but then what is needed is that others also accept us. Now, we may have changed and they may change. So we are talking about that kind of acceptance over here. If that acceptance is not there, then it can become a problem. So sometimes people want us to conform to who they are. So even from a social perspective, we could say that, if somebody is doing drugs and that's considered cool in that particular social circle. Now, should we do that? There are people who are social drinkers. They are not really interested in drinking, but they just want to belong. And for belonging, they have to. That may not.
Wait, for belonging, they what? You went out a little bit, CC. What'd you say for belonging, they what?
Sorry. For just belonging to that social circle, they start drinking or they start doing drugs. Or they start doing something.
The term we use is called to fit in. Yeah. They do stuff to fit in.
Yeah, to fit in. So in generally, I say that when you try too much to fit in, you no longer remain fit. You yourself become unfit because of that. So now, as compared to that, pleasing others is another aspect. I just made this a little crowded and messy, but let me see. It could be being courteous, being helpful, being understanding. These should not be being empathic. These should not be stopped. We don't make a virtue of displeasing others. But there are certain things. Let me keep it as it is. It's becoming a little messy. So it's not that there's a virtue in displeasing others. It's not that somebody is great because they're displeasing others. It's that sometimes we have to be ready that people may be displeased with me. And what you started off by saying that when we are ourselves empty or when we are full. So what may happen is that if we don't have self-acceptance, and then see there is self-acceptance and there is social acceptance, that we accept ourselves for who we are, and then society accepts us for who we are. So we could say that a healthy state is where both are there. If I put it like a pendulum, So if there's only self-acceptance without any social acceptance, that can lead to a lot of loneliness, or it can even lead to narcissism, where a person
or maybe you're just like transcendental, right? Right.
But we have to see what part of the self is accepted,
Yeah, whatever it is, I'll come to that part. You could be transcendental, but I would say then transcendentalists will also find a social circle where they're accepted.
Yeah, fair.
Because the spiritualists also have, they're not all alone, they also have. Now, if a person is only striving for social acceptance, then basically, essentially what happens is they become too docile, too pliable. They end up essentially losing themselves, losing oneself. Who am I? In trying to please everyone, do I do any of the things that are important for me? Do I even hold on to the values that are important for me? And I do none of those, then that's unfortunate. So we need, in one sense, a balance of self-acceptance. And so what you said is about, Radha, what you said about the beginning, that we are full. That means we are secure in who we are. At the same time, we also understand that I belong to a social circle, and there are certain sacrifices which are needed to be done for that social circle, and it's not wrong to do that.
If you're on the right side, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just, if you're on the right side of the pendulum, social acceptance, isn't social acceptance, if you're weighing too heavy onto it, where you're losing yourself and you're like too flexible, isn't social acceptance then just like a means to try to gain self-acceptance? Isn't it really all about self-acceptance?
Yeah, so go ahead. I'll let CC go first. What I would say to that, Radha, is that in this world,
There are sometimes, let me complete this, bro. Sometimes, rather, they may appreciate how clever you are, and sometimes I resent how clever you are.
Keep you on your toes.
So,
I think we live in this world for social acceptance because we're always comparing and competing and trying to fit in. And the fact of the reality is that, it's hard to fit in. We're spiritual beings trying to wear a material suit, and it's hard to fit in. And we're trying really hard to put a round hole with a square peg, or is it other way around? I don't know what the terminology is. So yes, I always feel that society has definitely swung a little bit too far to one side. And that is, of course, due to lack of understanding their spiritual self. And there's less acceptance of their spiritual self and understanding that our Creator has made us very unique. We are so unique that there is not another Radha Priti in the world. So that's where the middle part, when I say self-acceptance and social acceptance, the balance. Because it's not social acceptance for the purpose of self-acceptance. When you find self-acceptance, then it's easier to find that balance in social acceptance.
yeah. Well, since we are problematizing each other's points, so I'll also problematize yours now. See, I would say, let's put it this way. You raised the question about self-acceptance. Which self are we talking about? And then we could also talk about social acceptance. Which society are we talking about? Because we could say that no, society, everyone is not the same. If we consider, let me start with which society or which people in society are we talking about. Say, for example, if there's an athlete who is learning a particular particular maybe running or some particular sports. And now that athlete seeks acceptance from the coach. And if the coach is a good coach, then in trying to gain acceptance from that coach, the athlete will become a better athlete. And this is not a bad thing. In many ways, social acceptance keeps us from doing things which are inappropriate, doing things which are unhealthy. Right now, I may have the urge to scratch my nose, put my finger in my nose, put my finger in my mouth. And I won't, but I don't have that urge. But if I have that, if I'm alone, if I'm alone, I might do that. But if I'm there with someone, no, just that. No, I'm not going to do that. So there are so many things which are, in one sense, unhealthy for us, but our mind just proposes those things. If I'm eating food and I would like to gorge on the whole food, so if somebody gives me a birthday cake and I'm all alone, I might just consume the whole cake myself. But if I'm with someone and we are celebrating together, well, I may want the cake, but I also share the cake with others. So if somebody is just eating all alone and keeping others starving, that's not good. And generally decent behavior means we won't do that. So when we seek social acceptance, there are people who are our well-wishers, there are people who are our mentors, and seeking their acceptance, seeking acceptance by them can actually help us. So this brings me to our point that we could say, how should I put it here? So we have a higher self and we have a lower self. So what we want is that, so if we have good association, good social circles, then the seeking acceptance, say in spiritual circles, that can help me to actually develop my higher self. So in contrast, if I don't care for those who are my spiritual guides, those who are my well-wishers, then the result of that could be that I may end up very well not doing the things which are healthy for my progress. So that's why it's important that we recognize this difference. So now, in contrast, if the athlete is seeking acceptance from some, I don't know if this was a common word in the West. In India, we use the word loafers. Is that a word?
Just for shoes. I think it's shoes when you say that word, but.
Oh, yes, okay. Well, let me use another word, losers.
That's better.
Loafer means, yeah, so losers means people who are in the sports team, but they are not, they may be team members, but they're not really serious about the sports. So then in that case, what may happen very well is that in trying to be with them, okay, they come to play, but while training they cut corners and then they eat all kinds of food and they just do various things. So then that's not very healthy. So whose acceptance are we seeking? That is important. And if we are seeking acceptance by people whose actions are going to harm us, who are going to draw out our lower self, or who are going to prevent the manifestation of our higher self, then that definitely is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So far what I've heard is if I have an empty cup that I'm trying to give out of, to get it to fill up my empty cup instead of giving while it's empty. One, I need to, this isn't step one, but it's one of the steps, is being okay with maybe being different or having a different set of values than other people. Two, becoming more grounded or convicted myself in what those values are and how they apply in my life. And to help me with that, bringing in people that I trust and people that are going to inspire me in positive ways, reinforcing those values and the application of them in a way that brings me higher. Those are ways that I need to fill my cup. Is that Is that a good summary of what you said?
Yeah, definitely. That's nice way of continuing the metaphor. That there are people who help us fill our cup, and there are people who lead us to empty our cup. And if we are trying to please the people who are in one sense taking us away from ourselves, that definitely is unhealthy.
What were you going to say, Veda?
I like this this point. I think that the social acceptance part is our societal primary focus, because the images that we see in the world of what is that ideal social acceptance, that hierarchy, the different groups, what is success and what is beauty and what is fame, in all these different areas of global distractions, and people are trying to find a niche group that they would like to be connected to. People who are into martial arts, they want to make sure that they fit into that clique. So what I have noticed is that the social acceptance is a very, very deeply cliquish thing. And within that clique, there's a lot of peer pressure because that social acceptance is not a higher social acceptance, because it's the way capitalism drives us to believe what we should and shouldn't achieve. So that creates a tremendous amount of pressure for people to actually go down. In friend circles, most people say in colleges or campuses, the pressure is to drink. The pressure is to see how many drugs you can do without and still be decently functional. And so I think this social acceptance has gone down so low, and because we do not have self-acceptance, because we don't know who the self is, so the social acceptance becomes our self-acceptance. When we're accepted in the social circle, then we feel accepted. We accept ourselves. So when it goes that cycle, then we are really, really going down a space that causes tremendous amount of damage, especially to young people. In the college campuses, it's not about self-acceptance, it's about social acceptance, primarily. And that's where we start to, get messed up in society. So, because we do not have the self-acceptance, we don't even know who we are. So I think that this social acceptance is it's a big topic, because everyone wants to fit in. Everybody wants to fit in with what we consider cool people. And that's where we start to go down. So I think it's important to see the ramifications.
Yes,
Go ahead.
yeah. So it's ironic that be yourself is like a very popular slogan in today's world. That I don't care what the world thinks about me. But then people who say, I don't care what the world thinks about me, they say it so loudly and they want to make sure that the world hears it. So they do still care for people, care for the world. It's not that they're not caring for the world at all. So now, in one sense, whenever in society a new fashion trend comes up, it's amazing how quickly people jump on the bandwagon of that fashion trend. And they all think that I am doing something new. I am doing something special. Even I am doing something unique. But it actually leads to conformity, not individuality. But everybody thinks that I am being individual. I am manifesting my individuality by, say, getting this tattoo or doing this thing or that thing. And nothing against particular behavioral things. But the point is that very few people will, especially young people, will agree openly that they are simply trying to fit in. Everybody claims that I'm a non-conformist. but they end up conforming. So it's social acceptance is sought, but it's not acknowledged that we are seeking social acceptance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I like to go a little deeper. I think social acceptance is even as little kids.
Veda, I like how polite you are. I'll use this. I like to go a little deeper. It's just a polite way of saying you are not going deep enough.
No, I meant to say we need to break it down even more. I don't think we should get away from this social acceptance. This is a big problem in the world. And the people who set the trend for what is socially cool are not really cool. And people who think that, I'm going to be me, and they're also getting sucked into being socially conforming themselves. They don't even realize it. And then you realize it only when this whole process causes you so much pain and suffering. Because you're depressed, you're in anxiety, because you're, the friend circle that you don't have enough friends, because you're trying to, be somebody different, but then you're completely isolated. I see it in sometimes in the temples, the different cliques, and everyone is trying to conform, not just in the material world, but even in spiritual circles. I was speaking to someone who was saying that I'm no longer cool because my daughter can do better kirtan, so everyone wants to be her friend, and no one wants to be my friend. And I was like, what? It's just who is more cooler, who's more, who's got more social media followers, or who is considered to be more cool. So this whole social acceptance it's a big problem. Seeking social acceptance, unless we really, really find ourselves and accept ourselves. That's how I feel very strongly about this topic, because I deal with it a lot.
I was thinking when you guys were talking about this I grew up in Missouri, which was very Christian, and there's this really wholesome Christian family that I went to school with, and all of their kids were just like the nicest kids. They were just like really nice values. Everybody liked these kids. They just were great kids. And they were also very talented at like everything. They were athletic, they were smart. So they were in lots of different groups. But they had this way about them where they never got that while they were in the groups, they never got overtaken by the group. It was like they were very much themselves. They were very steady in that. And I was thinking of that when Veda was talking about you get involved in a sport and that becomes your clique and you need social acceptance from it. It's almost like, okay, you can get involved in all of these things and you can get a certain level of social acceptance, but it's so important from what you guys are saying. What I'm thinking is that you have this deeper level of self-acceptance connected to something much more profound, like this, 1311, like the Bhagavad-gita, you really know who you are. And in that way, as you get engaged in these other social circles, you don't get engulfed by them and carried around in the waves.
Mm.
There is a fad, CC, there is a fad within the spiritual group. This kirtan has become a big fashion, right? And now there's so much pressure on these little kids to, practice mridanga, harmonium, because that's what's considered cool. And there's so much pressure, and they all try to fit in. I remember Madhava, when, before he became this great kirtanier, when he would come to visit our ashrams, and I remember we would not want him to be in the pictures with us because he wasn't part of the social circle. And I remember thinking how crazy it is. And now he's this global leader in kirtan. But at that time, he wasn't part of the clique, he wasn't part of that social circle. So I think that, this happens not just in the material world, but also in the spiritual communities. There is this very interesting spiritual cliques. Because we by nature, I think, like to be part of, we have this tribal mentality. And I think that comes largely from the fact that we haven't truly accepted our spiritual selves. And so because we haven't accepted it, so we have to fit into a particular tribe.
Just because it's spiritual doesn't mean that it's not a manifestation of the ego, though. Like even though it's spiritual because it's in the circle, it could still be just as egocentric as playing football.
So I think I finished my rant. So
Yeah. That's a very good thought. That when we come to a spiritual group, there's inevitably, okay, let me put it this way. If this is my spirituality, one important part of my spirituality is also my sense of belonging, a sense of acceptance. That's one of the key reasons why people turn towards spirituality. But then, while the belonging, you could say it is more positive, on a more negative side, it could just become socialization. And sometimes the spiritual club can just become a social club. And when it becomes a social, it's one part of our spirituality. But if you could say this is my spirituality, and if my social club, it just becomes almost entirely the same thing. So then that is where it becomes unhealthy. And then people start feeling a sense of, while spiritual club are meant to have a sense of inclusion, they can also foster a sense of exclusion. And then people who don't do particular things, they just feel looked down upon. They feel guilted into doing things. Maybe in future we could talk about guilt a bit more. When guilt is healthy, when guilt is unhealthy.
yes.
So that's one aspect of this social conformity. Now, guilt is something we could say it's more in religious and possibly in spiritual circles. But among kids, you're not really guilted into doing drinking or something like that. You're more peer pressure.
Yes.
But the principle is very similar over there. That we all seek acceptance, and sometimes in seeking acceptance by others, we may end up, rejecting ourselves, rejecting not just who we are spiritually, but rejecting also who we are at a practical level. That means somebody might be an artist, and that maybe the people around them don't appreciate art so much. Like in India, it happens quite a bit that the two professions, medicine and engineering, they are all the glamorized professions. And if a kid wants to do something else, which is not so socially, is not so say financially rewarding, then they often face a lot of opposition. So sometimes people just end up losing themselves in trying to gain acceptance and approval from others. So that is an extreme situation, but it can be quite unhealthy. It's almost like after each of us make a point, there is a part of us which seeks acceptance from the rest of us. Isn't it? We're talking about acceptance.
That's true. Or you notice if nobody responds to what you said, you're like, oh, they didn't respond to what I said. What does that mean?
But that's one of the things I've noticed.
Yeah, in a podcast,
but it's the nature of
Yeah,
the
in a
world.
podcast, it's really okay. Both of us are speaking, so let me complete. So, in a podcast, you really feel uncomfortable with uncomfortable silence, isn't it?
I
So,
think I think this whole point of like seeking acceptance, there should be a whole series of discussions on what is acceptance. And this has become a big issue, CC, in the world. Because this point you're seeking acceptance by others, what we have officially done is we have rejected ourselves. And we have accepted an imposition of what people think of us as us, and we have accepted that, and we try to interact with the world with that imposed identity of who we are, and then we still don't fit in because that's not who we are. So there is a lot of confusion in this world of, identity. And as you know, when we covered that topic, identity crisis is a serious issue. And this acceptance will definitely, having a whole discussion on this acceptance, self-acceptance, and social acceptance is the byproduct. The way the trend is going in this world is because there's an identity crisis. So we are trying to find a social circle that will accept us for whatever someone has told us who we are. So this, I think, is a pretty big. Go ahead.
yes, your suggestion that we talk about acceptance finds acceptance with me. So yeah,
Say that again. I didn't get that.
I said that your suggestion that we talk about acceptance finds acceptance with me. Yeah.
Radha Priti, do you agree that one of the things, because you are living in the world, this identity crisis and people seeking acceptance, because whenever I do these retreats around Europe and America, I find that people are just looking for someone to say it's okay to be them.
Yeah, definitely.
Just giving them, because like one of my policies is no judgment values. So giving them a space to be accepted for who they are, that in itself makes such a huge difference. And then within that acceptance of who they are, we try to give them a little bit more knowledge and guidance into finding their self, the spiritual self.
Yeah. Sometimes you get so far away from it, you don't even know who you are anymore because you're just trying so hard to be what you think other people want you or need you to be.
And sometimes it's not even said, like I remember my son, he had gone and told his mother that, he was upset about something, and he said, I don't want to be a mini daddy, he said. And, I have never in my life tried to conform anybody to be like me. And when he said that, I was thinking, there must be something that I'm doing or acting in a way that he feels that he should be like me. He's a little kid. And I could see that he was feeling the pressure of conforming to an identity of what he thought I wanted him to be. And sometimes it can be self-imposed. It could be societal imposed or social imposition. So self-acceptance, I think it's a real issue.
Yeah, I never felt fully okay with being who I was until finding a spiritual path and becoming convicted in it. And then I became like, I was in relationships and I would just like do what the other person wanted me to do, or I'd do what my family wanted me to do. I was just so like whimsical, like whatever people wanted me to be, I'd be it, until I found a spiritual path of my own. And then I was like, actually, no. And then my relationship started to change. And I can even feel it now, like I'm not working, and my family really values working and making money. I'm not doing it right now. I probably will again in my life, but I could tell my mom, I hope she doesn't listen to this, but I could tell sometimes she's embarrassed that I'm not working. Like she doesn't tell my grandma, and usually that would like hurt me, but I'm like, I don't care. doesn't bother me at all. People can think whatever they want to think about me not working. Used to, yeah, usually it would crush me. I'd be like, oh, I need to go out and get a great job. But I'm like, and it actually feels like so good to be like, oh, you know what? I'm spending all day. I'm using my time very wisely, though I'm not working, and I'm okay with how I'm spending my time. But this is the first thing I've ever really felt okay about in my life, probably, that then it allows me to feel okay about other things as I feel convicted in it.
CC, can we break this down even one more angle? I have this thought. We're talking about individual self-acceptance and social acceptance. Can we say, because everyone that we come in contact with, we want to be accepted by them. And if we don't have an identity, we try to conform to their needs. Like Radha Priti, when she's with her mother, she wants to be accepted by her mother, and then her husband or her friend. Everyone she comes to, she wants to be accepted. And I think this is not just her. This is a lot of people. This is a lot of people.
I will say my husband's like, be whatever you want to be. You're great. Whatever you are. My husband's quite the opposite of everybody I've ever known, but.
Is there another term? Is there
another term for?
There is individual acceptance, self-acceptance, and social acceptance. When we're seeking acceptance from everyone, like everyone we talk to, is there a term for that?
Yeah, I think it's called approval addiction. It's actually, it's quite a big thing. It's quite a big thing for at least some people who, and there are books written on how to overcome approval addiction. So now it's a natural social instinct. I don't think there's anything unhealthy about it. Now, there's nothing intrinsically good about angering or alienating or antagonizing people. But that's not the point which we are talking about right now. So what we are talking about primarily is that when we wish to work, when we are functioning, it's natural that, say, if I am talking with someone, if I want to bond with that person, if these are my interests and these are the other person's interests, now it's natural. You could use my interests, my opinions. Maybe interest is a neutral, not the fully describing word over here. Others' interests. So it's natural that we look for some areas of commonality. But so in one sense, it's good that I find, okay, this is where we intersect, and then we appreciate the similarities, and then we can also navigate the differences. Now, what is unhealthy is that in trying to gain acceptance by the other person, I just become like a subset of that person. That is unhealthy. And conversely, you could say the same way, if in order to have a relationship, I expect that other person to become a subset within me, this would also be unhealthy. I mean, that person has to not only agree with everything that I know, but they agree with everything I know, and they also agree that I am bigger and better than them. So that's where it becomes a serious problem. But seeking this is, I think earlier said, it's just courtesy. It's just decency, it's politeness, and that's not bad. So
that's a nice depiction. I like that. Guys, we only have a couple minutes left. Should we maybe wrap this up for today? And this also might be a good kind of segue into just kind of talking a little bit about what our plans or what our vision is here for Seeker's Quest in building a community. it's something that we're kind of trying on, seeing if it manifests. And we just launched a website called seekersquest.org. Please check it out if you haven't. And I just launched this membership platform so that you can be a member of our community, and it's really cool. We're just trying it out. So if you want to be a pioneer and sign up for it and kind of experiment with me, that'd be great. But you can go to the website and you can click offerings at the top, and you can be a member. I chose just like a $5 price. It has to like cost something, but the money will be used for the platform and for expansion. And ideally, eventually we'd like to do Seva projects together. So that's kind of where the funding for things will be going. But the membership, you can get in and we can continue these conversations all weeks. I just launched a challenge, a meditation challenge. So I think it's like meditating every day. You can sign up for the challenge and we can all inspire each other, post pictures of our meditation spaces. That's the challenge I posted. But we'll have like a live session once a month with Veda, an open heart session. We'll have once a month Q&A with CC if you guys are into it. And we'll have various challenges and discussion boards and stuff. So we can continue these conversations as a group and have that community support. So that's one vision. And the website offers that. And then the next thing coming soon, hopefully, is courses with CC. So we're going to launch those in the coming months. But if you haven't checked out our website yet and checked us out, and please do, seekersquest.org. Again, please join our community. And I thought that this would be a good kind of pitch for that. So that's all I got on that. Sorry, guys. I
think she should summarize it now. Thank you, Radha.
Thank you. That's I could have given a conceptual summary, but he gave you a practical call for action. It's also a good summary. It's nice. So I think we meandered a little bit. Right. So I'll neglect what the two of you spoke in the beginning. I'll start with what I spoke and integrate what he spoke a little later. So basically, we started by talking about these two things, and that pendulum, I think, was the underlying self-acceptance, social acceptance. And then within that, both of these are unhealthy. Self-acceptance can lead to isolation and narcissism, and social acceptance alone can lead us to losing ourselves. So we want a balance of both. And then in trying to explore the balance, we broke things down like the self. There is a higher self which we want to manifest, which is one we want to nourish. And then there's a lower self which we want to elevate or free ourselves from. And conversely, in society, we can have constructive social circle. I'll just use that word, that like the example of a coach for an athlete. And we can have non-constructive, destructive, might be a stronger word, destructive social circle, and we want to keep away from that. And in one sense, we could say that the higher self and the constructive social circle, they link with each other. So so for example, spiritual people, spiritual guides, spiritual friends, spiritual mentors, they will help us grow spiritually. And that is good for us. And then we went further. We discussed a couple of brief points. Actually, we discussed in many directions. But one of the points is that we take, in one sense, individual responsibility to see which association is filling our cup and which is actually emptying it. So again, this is something which the self as an individual has to do that. And related with that, we also discussed about peer pressure and how that's a huge challenge. Peer pressure, we could say, in general circles, and then guilt in specifically religious social circles. These can both be means by which we can have sort of destructive association, and we need to rise above that, go beyond that. And we are creating a spiritual circle for where we can all be accepted and belong through the Seekers Quest online platform. That was Radha's concluding point. And so we will explore in future sessions acceptance more. What acceptance, what all are the dimensions of acceptance? We'll talk about in the future. Thank you very much. Any points anyone wants to add? There, Radha.
That's great. I feel validated. My analogy made it onto the summary board. So that's a win for me for the day.
You have been accepted, yes.
Yes, good. My cup's full. Thank you.
So grateful
Thank you so
to
much.
Radha Priti for doing so much non-stop pushing forward the mission of the Seeker's Quest, and CC for always enlightening us.
You both inspire me.
Yeah, and I thank you for detailing all of us.
For
Thank
doing
you.
what?
I enliven everyone and you deaden everyone. So thank you.
Thank you both.
I deaden everyone. Perfect. I love it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Namaste, everyone.